Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. I first played Final Fantasy VII in English immediately after it was released in 1997. I was in college at the time. I moved to Japan after college. I lived in Tokyo for 10 years. Today, I live in New York. Between July of 2017 and April of 2019, I played Final Fantasy VII in both English and Japanese 16 times. With forensic interest, I replayed, recorded, researched, and relentlessly scrutinized the English translation versus the original Japanese script, burrowing into my own psyche as I speculated about the mindset of this work of fiction's erstwhile translator. After what is perhaps, arguably, the most famous line of dialogue from the English version of Final Fantasy VII, I have titled my series Let's Mosey, a slow translation of Final Fantasy VII. In 1997, the translator of Final Fantasy VII had to translate the game's entire script at a neck-breaking speed, under a suffocating deadline, in crushing solitude. The Japanese language's relative terseness in comparison to English challenged his ability to fit punchy prose into tiny text boxes. For example, washing machine is 3 characters in Japanese and 15 in English. That's a 500% inflation. Over time, these scraps of shrinkage add up to reams of lost nuance. I believe that to truly experience a work as its author intended, one must learn its language fluently, spend a large fraction of a lifetime inside the culture that made it, and live, love, and lose in its language. I believe that no such thing exists as a quote-unquote perfect translation of a work of literature from one language to another. All translations require compromise. Sometimes we see beautiful compromises. Sometimes we see spectacular compromises. Final Fantasy VII's English translation houses a dump truck full of sloppy compromises. Through the power of freeze frames, Photoshop, and a microphone, owning the gift of 22 years of hindsight, I am, today, able to lend you, the viewer, my decade of life experience speaking the Japanese language 13 days out of every 15, as I unfurl, unroll, unpack, and expand dozens of key dialogues from Final Fantasy VII's original Japanese script, all the while holding them up to the light of the 1997 English translation's most famously fudgy typos and floppy phraseologies. Over the course of this series, I excavate, examine, and explain several of what I identify as important mistranslations and misunderstandings, which might have impressed impossibly permanent misconceptions upon fans' perception of the game surviving even until today. By the end of this series, I will illustrate a Rosetta Stone's worth of substantial enough discrepancy examples, which even the most Japanese grammar unacquainted of viewers can use to intuit the Japanese nuance behind even the most arcane of English lines. Also, I'll tell you about my ex-fiancé, this one band that I was in, my years working at Sony Computer Entertainment Japan, another band I was in, this friend I had who was afraid of birds, the best band I was in, the worst band I was in, and most importantly, I will tell you what my perpetually shirtless, NASCAR-loving dorm neighbor at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, said about Final Fantasy VII on September 9th, 1999, which might secretly be the reason I started this whole series in the first place. So, let's mosey on down into a pit of obsession, linguistics, and discovery. Let's mosey along to a slow translation of Final Fantasy VII. I was born stupid. However, I will not die hungry. Video games forever, Kotaku.com.